Hello XCFL, I'm Rich Campbell. Welcome back to another edition of the XCFL Fifth Quarter Podcast. I'm going to go ahead and talk about tonight's live broadcast, and in case you missed it, you'll be able to catch the recap here. Tonight's game featured the San Francisco 49ers against the Atlanta Falcons. You had Coach Nick against Coach CJ. This is a great matchup between two owners, as mentioned earlier in social media. This game had two great teams coming into tonight. On paper, they may have looked a little bit different. The San Francisco 49ers come in at 5-2, and the Falcons came in at 4-3. The final in this one ended up being 24-14. San Francisco started things out in the first quarter with a 10-point lead, then adding on to that to make it 17-7 at halftime. Coming out of halftime, the Falcons came back what looked to be possibly coming back with a 14-17 score. And then in the fourth quarter, San Francisco scored again and ran out the rest of that clock. Let's go ahead and get to the box score in this one. You have the offensive yards gained by the away team. San Francisco 49ers had 308 yards gained to the Falcons' 234 yards. Offensive rushing yards goes to San Francisco again. In this one, you had Jared Cool. This guy's 141 yards tonight, had a great game. He literally carried San Francisco in this one. Offensive yards for the Falcons, only 70 in this one. Offensive passing yards, again, this stat goes to San Francisco with 167. Just shy of that was the Falcons with 164. A 3-yard difference there when you count those yards by air. When you come to the first downs, the Falcons had one more first down in this game than San Francisco. They had a total of 13 to San Francisco's 12. Punt return yards goes to San Francisco. They had 16 return yards. They had 84 yards on kickoff returns as well. The Falcons had a 0-0 on the punt yards and the kick return yards. Total yards gained goes to San Francisco. Of course, they had 408 total to the Falcons' 234 yards. Key here for this one, San Francisco with 3 turnovers, the Falcons with 0, and the San Francisco 49ers still come out with the victory by 10 points in this one. You got to capitalize on those turnovers. That's huge in this game. When you get the ball back from a team, you need to execute on those plays and at least put some points on the board, which is going to help you when it comes down to the final tally. And in this one, unfortunately, they came up short. You convert those 3 turnovers, and this game is a little bit different. Going to the third down conversions, San Francisco had 4, the Falcons had 3. There was no fourth down or 2-point conversions attempted in this game. Both teams had a great red zone offense percentage, both at 100. Red zone offensive touchdowns goes to San Francisco at 3. The Falcons had 2. The 49ers had the one and only field goal. 5 penalty yards, that's it. That was on San Francisco's side for a 5-yard penalty. And they also controlled the clock time of possession with 16 minutes and 48 seconds to the Falcons' 15 minutes and 12 seconds. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the player stats. We'll start with the passing. Leading the way here by just a few yards was Carson Wentz, who had a 69.7 rating tonight with 170 yards in the air. He had no touchdowns, no interceptions. He had a 31-yard long ball. He was only sacked 1 time. He was 11 completions for 24 attempts. He was 45%, averaging per attempt 7.1. To the other side of the ball, the San Francisco 49er quarterback, Chisholm Bragg, he was not so much better. He was a 60.2 rating tonight, 167 yards in the air. He did have 1 touchdown. However, he did throw 2 interceptions, 2 of those 3 turnovers that we talked about earlier. 22 yards was the longest he threw. He was also sacked 1 time today, and he was 13 of 22 with a 59% rating. Not a very big day for the quarterbacks here in this one. It was definitely a battle back and forth in the beginning of this game. San Francisco kind of slipped out there at the end with this one and had great clock management and took this game over. Moving on to the running backs, Jared Cool leading the way with 14 attempts, 122 yards on the ground. He averaged 8.7. He had 2 touchdowns himself. He had 1 broken tackle and 16 yards after the catch. He also broke a 55-yarder as well, which was the longest run of the day. Moving down to David Johnson here with the Falcons. He had 10 attempts for 55 yards. That's just not getting it done. 5.5-yard average, no touchdowns, no fumbles. He had 2 broken tackles for 23 yards after contact, and his longest run of the day was 15. Some notable mentions touching the ball, Diamond Chiwika, and also Larry Holt and Wentz had 1 attempt for 7 yards today, which was a touchdown. Go figure. Larry Holt also, the halfback out of Harvard, with his first year, he had 7 attempts for 8 yards, who also pulled in a touchdown as well for the Falcons. Moving on to the receivers, leading the way was Rob Gronkowski, who they picked up in a trade earlier this year. He had 4 receptions for 56 yards. He averaged just right on the nose at 14 yards. He had 17 yards for run after catch and averaged 4.3 per catch. His longest of the day was 18. Behind him was DeAndre Hilgabo, who had 4 receptions for 53 yards. He averaged 13.3. He had 16 yards running after the catch. He averaged 4 average per catch, and he had 22 yards was his longest reception. Behind him was DeMarco Dillon. He had 3 receptions for 34 yards. He also picks up a touchdown. Some other notable mentions, Brandon Cooks had 3 receptions for 44 yards. Allen Robinson had 2 receptions for 25 yards, and Anton Oglesby had 2 receptions for 32 yards. Moving on to the defense, leading the way here with 7 tackles is Deion Jones, Dontarius Yeast, and Tevin Crowell, all from the Falcons, leading the way with the most tackles tonight. Behind them are Stanley Locklear and Lamar Powell, each with 6. Tackles for loss, racking these up with just 1 here is Stanley Locklear, Brandon Irvin, Adrian Swan, Marquez Gates, and Sinio Tull, the rookie that was picked up this year in the draft. Grady Garrett also had 1 as well himself. Sack leaders on the night, with just 1 leading the way, Darian Whitaker. He had 1 himself. Tag teaming for a sack was Stanley Locklear and Romel Glenn, also the rookie out of Texas, picked up this year by San Francisco. Interceptions leading the way would be Brandon Irvin from the Falcons and Marquise Gates as well from the Falcons. Only 1 yard gained on those interceptions. Not much there to talk about on the defense. Not much kick return yards in this one as well. Guy on the field the most tonight was Tevin Crowell. He played 52 downs. Behind him was Eddie Gold with 45, and the rest of the way with 44 was pretty much the entire 2 squads between the Falcons and Atlanta. This was a good one. This had some great moments to it. It was definitely a hard-nosed football game. I mean, there wasn't much high-flying action going on. It was hard-nosed, ground and pound, pick your spots, and get the guys downfield when you could. Again, Nick leading the way in this one against the Falcons, coming out with the win tonight with 24 points to the Falcons' 14 points. I hope you guys enjoyed the broadcast if you watched it, and if you tuned into the podcast after, we appreciate it. Good things are coming to the XCFL, so hang on to your seats and enjoy the ride, fellas. We're getting ready for the Madden 18 cycle to come around the corner. Most of us will be getting this game next week on early release. If you're not, I'm not sure what rock you're living under, but you better crawl out and find a game and start practicing up, because it's going to be a good one for Madden 18. A lot of us are excited. A lot of us are stale and are waiting for a fresh start come for Madden 18. So everyone hang in there. Get your content ready for Madden 18. Gear up, because we're coming in hot. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the 5th Quarter podcast. Once again, I'm Rich Campbell. I hope you're enjoying everything that the XCFL is bringing to you. And of course, please tune in next time for the live broadcast. Look out for the promotions on that. Next one coming to you soon.